Hey, welcome back to my video blog, my Painting Trafalgar blog. Um, I'm trying to talk about the issues that I grapple with as I make paintings, and I happen to be engaged on these paintings of the Battle of Trafalgar. So I'm making this about the history of Trafalgar and my painting process. And I'm showing you these two models that look the same. At the Battle of Trafalgar, the primary warship in the battle was the 74-gun ship, and that's what these are. These are models of a 74, and if you counted up all the guns, it might come to around 74. It's complicated, but yeah, there's 100-gun ships like HMS Victory, first rate, second rate, third rate. A sixth-rate ship would be the frigate. The rates are all based on how many guns they carry, and the 74 was a very like, you got a lot of bang for your buck, literally, in terms of, like, if you're building a navy and you're making them out of trees that you had to drag to the city to build them, it's expensive. So you wanted to make very sure you're making the right kind of ship. And everybody, and I mean all the seafaring nations, settled more or less on the 74s. They would still build larger ones, but the 74 was the bread and butter of the fleet. So I knew I needed some 74-gun ship models. And I knew I needed models because I wanted to think three-dimensionally when I was doing the composition. So here's photographs of those two models. And I shot them right where I'm standing, actually, against this same gray background that's right here, right? You can see when I array them like this, you can imagine how you could frame this into a painting. You know, they're going to help. And the other way to achieve the same result would have been through drawing with pencil. And that certainly can be done and certainly has been done. But I like this idea of being able to take dozens and dozens of these photographs. And in Photoshop, I can actually cut and paste these things, flip them left and right, and so on, and work from those. Here's the same two models, but this time against a painted backdrop and a painted sea. And you can see how this is going to be helpful in creating a motif, as the French say, for the painting, right? So where are we now? Here's a model of the HMS Victory. This is in my other room. It's on top of the refrigerator. It's about a yard long, and it's an enormous model. It's a plastic kit. You can buy that model and build it yourself. And I did 25 years ago. And I've been photographing it, right? And in the photographs, using Photoshop, I can alter them and change them. So last weekend, I put on the surface of my bed some blue fabric, and I taped some blue paper to the wall. And then I put in the background are the two models that I just showed you at the opening, these two, right? And they're 10 inches long at the maximum. And then in the foreground is that HMS Victory that I just showed you, the plastic kit that's available. And I'm holding that like on my knees. I'm sitting next to the bed, looking across the surface of the bed, and the surface of the bed then, for our purposes, is the surface of the water. And then this is another model that I've been working on, which isn't finished yet, but I stuck it in here anyway. That's a bigger 74-gun ship. And the idea that I could shift these models back and forth and move the model in the foreground, I could create these geometric shapes across the picture plane. This is the picture plane, right? And I took a bunch of these shots using the models that I had available, and I was getting excited. I thought, like, this is the way forward, to use these models. This is what I've been building these dumb models for. And telling people, like, oh, no, it's not just because I like goofing off and building models. I'm going to use these for work. And I actually am, So this is a different model in the foreground. It's a frigate model that I built of the the USS Constitution. The U.S. Constitution still exists. It's down in Boston. And she did not participate at the Battle of Trafalgar, although she's very similar in age to some of the ships. So I got to this photo, and I decided that this was the one I wanted to use. It's the bow of the frigate, and in the background are these other ships in the distance. And I thought, look at this dark to light transition where the frigate in the foreground is all in silhouette because the light is falling through my bedroom window and lighting up everything on the surface of the bed, but I'm almost in the shadow off to the side. And you're getting this dramatic lighting with these weird geometric shapes that are now appearing where the rigging cuts that light up into these dark and light triangles and quadrilaterals or whatever they are, right? And I got really excited about that. So I put this image onto, now I'm blocking on the name, a photo sharing website, right? And I got some nice results for it, and I thought, like, this is the way to go. So I started this morning. This is a Monday, the 25th of January. This is a 16-inch tall, 20-inch wide canvas, and I am going to paint that scene. So I've got the dark shape in the foreground, the dark sails above. They're in silhouette. The light is happening in the background, and it's coming at the viewer this way, right? It's not coming from the viewer and bouncing off the object like if I was using a flash on a camera. So I got that dramatic shape. So I'm excited about this because for me, compositionally, this is weird and different. I usually have longer horizontals. I've been in love with long horizontal paintings for the last 20 years. And I can't remember the last time I painted anything like a square. And this is a pretty truncated rectangle for me. But 16 by 20 is a common size, and it won't come as a surprise to anybody to see this. But for me, it's a little different, right? It's a little more back to the basics, I guess. The last time we talked, I went at length into talking about where the horizon is in a painting. In this one, you'll notice the horizon's up pretty high. And that's entirely due to the artificial nature of how I arrived at the picture. Like I was looking at the surface of my bed, and I was holding the camera up a little high. And the logic of this doesn't quite work out because the foreground ship is at the wrong height for the horizon if I'm looking across the... Like I'm looking from the starboard rail to the port side rail, and I'm only slightly higher. Like I'm not, in other words, I'm not looking down at the deck. But I am sort of looking down at the surface of the water. The only way this could make logical sense is if the ship in the foreground, here, and I'll duplicate it here, if the ship in the foreground was rolling, which of course it could, and at Trafalgar, all the ship's logs agree, there was a strong swell, whereas the surface of the water was wavy. So if I had made the bed poorly, the surface would be all lumpy, and that's kind of what we have here. We have the lumpy sea. So it's not outside of the bounds of reality that I could get this composition because all these ships could be bouncing around quite dramatically. Where the eye view is of the person who's watching this is kind of up to debate. I'd have to be higher than the height of the surface of the deck, but I'm not as high up as in the rigging of the ship either. I'm sort of floating probably about 30 feet above the water's surface if I am the viewer that sees this view. And then the disposition of the other ships in the distance, they're all a little wonky too. Like they don't really agree on where the horizon is. They're all, because of the lumpy surface, they're at different dispositions. But the water could be, and in fact was at Trafalgar, lumpy. So that's where we are. One last thing before I go. We're 8 minutes in, and it would be nice to get one of these in at 10 minutes, because that was what I promised. And I was talking about how I started this painting today. I started this painting, and it was a blank white canvas, right? So here's a blank white canvas, very similar size, right? Look how bright it is. It's extraordinarily bright, right? I don't like to work on that. You'll notice none of that white is here. The only light colors you see here is paint that was freshly applied today. The first thing I did when I started today was I took a white canvas and I painted a tone over it. So here's a blank canvas that I painted a tone on top of. And the whole idea of this is to defeat this white. See that white in the corner that I didn't hit? If I make a line on this with a bright color or a dark color, I'll see it better against the gray. If I make the same couple of marks on this featureless white canvas, anything that's gray is going to appear black against that super bright white. And anything that's black is going to look like something out of science fiction. It's just going to look too weird. So I always like to work into a gray surface. And that's what I did here. Yeah, so this painting, the idea of this painting is that I'm going to try a bunch of different things. I'm going to keep it experimental. It won't be this formal exercise in how to paint a seascape. I really want to goof around and be silly. I want to add a lot of figures on the deck. Since I have this opportunity to have crew figures that'll be like an inch high, like this big, I will stick people out on the bowsprit doing stuff. And I think that they're going to look great against that light background. They'll be like, you know, silhouetted figures. I will be able to put them in there. I think think that's all I got to say. I had some like other things planned to say, but I think I could expand that into its own episode. So for now, I'm actually going to end this one at the 10-minute mark. So yeah, this is the first day on this painting. This is like 2 hours into the painting, and it's really just the underpainting. Nothing that you see here will remain at the end of the painting. It'll look quite different. So it'll be interesting for you to follow along, because the other paintings that I've shown in the video were paintings that I'd already worked on for days and days. This is one where you're seeing the painting on the very first day, and I don't even know what it's going to look like when it's done or how many days it's going to take. They always take longer than I think they will take. This one is a little smaller, but that doesn't necessarily mean it'll go faster. And there will be a need for a lot of detail because everything is so close. I should be able to see every individual plank, so I might wind up going down a rabbit hole worrying about the exact location of each seam. But on the other hand, it's in silhouette, so I can leave a lot of it to be, dark and in shadow. We'll see. Anyway, that's all I got, and thanks for visiting, and leave a comment if you like. If you don't have to. But if you have like a specific question about anything, leave a question, and I'll read the comments someday, and I will answer it. Thanks. Bye-bye.